All right, we're now live. Should I do my intro? Do you know my intro?
No, do you have like a live intro?
I don't have a live intro. I just have like an intro that I do on my channel, like always.
Do it. We might as well.
Ready? Okay. Hey, balls! The weirdest thing.
A mess. I love it.
Pretty much. Oh my gosh. So today I'm with the amazing, the awesome, the wonderful Blaire White, and we're talking about kids transitioning. Let's see. I know you made like I think you've done a video on your channel. I think how many videos have you made on like kids transitioning again?
I think I've made like two or three, and I've always wanted to do a video, or a live stream, something public with a trans person who transitioned at a very young age, obviously, since I, talk about it. So this is perfect. You're the perfect person to do it with.
Oh, thank you. Oh my gosh. So when did you exactly like transition? Just so we can get, I think I know, but like I just want to be sure.
Well, I started at 43 and now I'm 60.
Wow, 20 years.
No, I started roughly about age 20, 21, and I'm 24 now. So it's been, yeah, like 3 or 4 years.
Sweet. Oh my gosh. I think I'm like, so I transitioned first at like 15, just about like 15 and a half. And now I'm like 17.
Hmm.
But
Lord, honey.
I know, right? So basically, I don't want to say like I totally disagreed with you. In fact, like a lot of this I do agree with you on. Like, I don't think 13-year-olds should be on hormones and stuff. And I'm guessing like by transition, we mean like going on hormones, right? Like,
Hmm.
because that's like the part that kind of like affects everybody.
Yeah, that's the big part. Like, I never have an issue with, obviously, I think it's really important for parents to let their kids, like live the life they want to live and dress how they want to dress. Like, I think that's so, so important because I remember when I was younger and I started experimenting with, you know, the stereotypical things we always start experimenting with makeup or with like more feminine clothing, whatever. I had some pushback from my parents. I remember this one incident where my dad found like it was like an eyeshadow palette or something or cover up or something, and he got really, really upset and he threw it away. And I was like heartbroken because to me, that little bit of makeup I had was like, I was like 13 maybe. That little bit of makeup I had was like my self-expression embodied in like a little, colorful package. So I think it's so important for parents to let their kids experiment because as long as it's safe, because, your kids are gonna end up how they're going to end up regardless.
Right. Right, exactly. Like I think when I first like started everything, like I think it was just like a little eyeliner thing that I had and I like tried to do wings and like do a little smudge, but like I looked awful. But like it was just like experimenting. And if it weren't for that like eyeshadow or eye like liner palette, I wouldn't have gotten like a feel for things at a younger age and maybe I wouldn't like have the experience and I wouldn't be able to like, test things out. So as you said, I think it's important that like you let your kid experiment with things.
Yeah, because, if you're trans, you're going to end up trans regardless. And like whether or not you have access to makeup is not going to change it. The only difference is if your kid really is trans or really is feeling this need to express themselves, you're only going to emotionally damage them by being a dick about it and like throwing it away, or you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly. And I so agree. So, like, what age do you think it's like, what age should kids be able to go on HRT?
It's so hard because I feel like everyone's sort of line is their own line and it's kind of arbitrary. For me, I've always said, 18, like legal adult, like do what you want.
Mhm.
But having said that, I understand that like life isn't black and white. You know what I mean? I understand that situations are nuanced and I understand that, there are people who transition at, 15, 16, 17, and like it's the right decision and they end up happy. But it's so hard to like let there be a blanket statement for, all kids should be able to transition under 18 because some or even most would be okay with it when you're risking so much. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I definitely feel. And like, I think, I think there's a lot of truth to that because I don't know, kids are all over the place. Kids are just like kids are kids. And so
Mhm.
naturally, like, you know, even I think every kid has just like wrapped a towel around their head, pretending it's hair and shit like that, and just done
Yes,
all
honey.
kinds of things. And like that's why like especially in your video where like the parent like oh, there was that one parent that pretty much like I want to say like it's proven that they forced it on their child, but like they were like a trans ad like activist and stuff like that. And they're cis, but their child just so happened to be trans and they're, you know, and it's like
Yeah.
let kids experiment, let kids do whatever. But it's like the second you like see, oh my God, they're playing with Barbies, they're playing with all kinds of stuff. That means
Mhm.
they're trans and like pumping them with hormones and blockers. It's just like that seems it's like a little bit off-putting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, that's when it's crazy. But I will say this, like, despite the fact that like I think 18 is a good age, like I said, that doesn't change the fact that I understand that there like are legitimate transgender kids, you know, like I experienced gender dysphoria from like I remember being in kindergarten experiencing it. You know what like I was always trans, regardless of the fact of whether or not I was able to act upon it. Another example is when I met you. If people don't know, a little backstory, I met you in Virginia. I had a fan meetup at a mall, and you came, and I had seen some of your stuff before that, so I knew who you were, and I was excited. And you were very sweet. And like when I was talking to you, we had like a little lunch with like everyone who showed up, and I was talking to you, and I saw so much of you and me as far as like me at your age. Well, honestly, that's a lie. You're much more accelerated in like your self-expression and knowing who you are than I was at your age. But what I saw was a person like you're legitimately a trans person. Like you realize that, and you like have acted upon it, and you're in the motions, and it's the right move for you as an individual. You know what I mean? Unfortunately, when we're talking about, you know, transgender kids and who should be able to go on, you know, moans and etc., you almost have to talk about it in a blanketed statement. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
The
definitely.
individual gets left out.
Right, right. It is like, as you said, like a very case by case thing. Everyone's different. Everyone,
Yeah.
like, there's like trans people, like Caitlyn Jenner, for example, who transition later in life, you know, whether it's because they want to have kids for first
Mhm.
or they want to, they just feel safer because back then transitioning wasn't very safe as it is now.
Yeah.
Still arguably not very safe, but it's safer than it's ever been.
Yeah.
So like you get all kinds of trans people that come out at like all ages. I
Right.
do, I, and like I think there's a fine line between what's good and what's bad. Um, I think we could both agree though, like it shouldn't be like implemented in law, and it shouldn't be like up to the government to like dictate what age you know you start hormones on.
Um,
Or do you
yeah,
think?
I think though, like again, I do stick with the age of 18, but I also am aware that there are, you know, individual cases. I mean, there are 11, 12, 13 year olds that like, and younger who are like, you know, this is such a classic word used by like ignorant people, but like mutilating themselves, like hurting themselves over not being able to transition. And I think those kids should be definitely um, it should be on the table to sort of move them in the process as far as, you know, therapy and then figuring out when you can transition, etc. Um, but yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree. Like I think I don't know why like it just rubs me the wrong way when parents are like it's either hormones or a dead kid, and it's like
Same. I hate that.
I absolutely like I do get it. Like suicide absolutely can play and you know kind of link together with gender dysphoria, but not every trans person is suicidal. Like personally, I've never felt like, you know, the need to kill myself or I never like, you know, really I've never wanted that. I've never desired that. And it's just like, you know, that I think a child wanting to kill themselves is like a problem in its own. Like you shouldn't just
Yes.
straight away to like hormones and stuff like that. Like you should they should get the help that they need.
I agree. There's a really famous not famous, but a widely spread meme. And it's like a screenshot from a TV interview where I forget who the interviewer was, but it was a black woman and she was interviewing a doctor who prescribed hormones to kids. And the interviewer was basically like, don't you think it's maybe a little young to make permanent decisions about your body? And the doctor said, well, they make decisions to kill themselves. And that seems to me to be like emotional blackmail in a way to these parents. It's like, you know, we shouldn't convince the parents either that it's like so black and white, like you either give your kids hormones or they're gonna kill themselves, you know?
Yeah, it's like exactly like a lot of people treat it as like a black or white situation. Like it's just either hormones or death. And it's just like it's so like unrealistic, and it's just like it's kind of sad in my opinion, like when like parents don't go through the proper steps. And it's sad that especially like in at least where I am in Maryland, like there's this thing called informed consent, and they might have it over in Hallie, where you live, but there's this thing, called informed consent. And basically the child can go to the endocrinologist and get prescribed on hormones that day just by saying they're a tranny. And like, that's a problem waiting to happen.
That is such a problem because first of all, no good endocrinologist is going to give you hormones the day you walk in. You have to have, you know, tests done prior and and having said that, I went to an endocrinologist and I still see him to this day that like gave me an the first day I walked in. I was an adult, but and you know, luckily it worked out with him, and like I'm very healthy, my hormones are great, like my levels are all great. I get tested frequently, but you know, it still sketches me out that it was so easy to do, to walk in one day, say I'm trans, and then walk out with like hormones, you know?
Yeah, it's a very I don't want to say it's like a power that can be abused, but it's really kind of like that. Like it's just like it's very easy to get these things, and it's just like some things should just naturally not be that easy to get, especially if it like changes your body. And it
having said that, also though, like it is bad when it's like extremely difficult to get.
Exactly.
I remember I lived in Michigan for a while, and that was like right before I transitioned, and I was going through a really hard time. I was 20 and like I hadn't started my transition, and I was realizing it was what I had to do, and I was fucking miserable. And I remember like researching like how to start HRT, how to transition in Michigan, because it is, for people who don't know, a state by state, you know, basis of how easy it is, how hard it is, what the process is, if you have to go to therapy, if you don't. And in Michigan, it was very, very difficult, and it was very depressing. And I knew it would be like such a long road to actually start. So I left Michigan. I moved the hell out of Michigan for other reasons too. But I was like, no, girl, like I know what I have to do. I'm out of here. So it's like California's too easy and then Michigan's too hard. So if we could just find a balance, that'd be great.
Find a little in between. Yeah, I so get that. Oh, what were you gonna say? Sorry.
No. I was just agreeing with you.
Yeah, it's definitely, you have to find that like little balance, and not everybody's good at that. But I do agree that it shouldn't be too hard. And like that should be just for any like anything medical, anything doctor related. Like everything should be accessible, but not impossible, and not like so easy to get. So
yeah.
I definitely agree there.
Another sort of interesting aspect about like transitioning young is like the having kids aspect of it.
Oh yeah, like the sterilization.
Yeah, because when you transition very young, you're obviously giving up your ability to have kids. Especially if it's like 13 years old. You know, if you literally don't go through any puberty and you go straight to transition, like you're not going to be able to ever have kids. It was interesting. I was at dinner with Caitlyn Jenner a week ago or so, and we were talking about it, and it was a private conversation, so I don't want to give up too much, but we were basically talking about the difference between my transition and hers. And she was saying like, listen, people criticize me for transitioning so late and they don't get it. And, you know, they think, why would you do that? And I've even questioned Caitlyn for that. I was like, girl, why would you wait till you're like 50? But she was like, but look what I have. I have like this amazing family, all these kids, like all these grandkids that would not be here had I gone straight to transitioning. And I was like, that's an amazing perspective, because I'm at this point at 24 where I have to figure out how I'm going to have kids with Joey. Like we're getting married soon. We want to have a family soon. And I'm like, okay, it's going to be harder for us. So it's like, when it comes to transition, nothing is ever perfect, if that makes sense.
Right. No, definitely. And like, oh my gosh, that's a lot. Okay.
Sorry.
No, it's all good. Like I so get that. And like I've met people who've like you know, as you said, like have kids first and like have had all that done and then decide to transition when times are safer and it's more accepted and they actually like have kids.
Mm-hmm.
I will like I gotta say like I didn't think about that when I first started transitioning. Like I like as a little 15, not many 15-year-olds really think about having kids and like
Right.
and unfortunately they really don't tell you that at like the endocrinologist. Like they tell you like
Yeah.
next it's gonna have and like, you know, you're gonna grow boobs, you're gonna have curves, you're gonna get kind of fat and sad. But like you know,
Right. Fat and sad is the perfect description for what hormones do.
literally like,
Hear
estrogen in 2 words, fat and
that? Sorry.
No, it's all good. It's just like they don't give you the rundown really like that. They just kind of like, oh, it just went dark. It's okay though. I look better in the dark. But like they don't really give you the rundown of all that kind of stuff. They don't tell they like at least mine never told me that like you can get sterile on this. You know, this is the negative effects. I mean, they told me like I have like a higher chance of getting like breast cancer and like my bone density will go down, but they never said anything really about sterilization. So like I feel like that should be a requirement. But like I never really kind of knew about that. And now that I look at it, like, you know, I'm kind of like at the age, you know, would I want kids one day? Would I do like, you know, I'm kind of like questioning things because like it's what teenagers do best. But like I think we have a lot of resources now for getting kids. Like there's there a lot are expensive. Like getting kids that aren't like, you know, your biological out the womb kind of thing, you know, it's if it's anything other than that, it's going to be very expensive. And
yes.
the ghost just possessed my ring light.
Okay.
Damn, Annabelle. But like I think there are a lot of resources these days that can provide to kids. It is expensive, but I feel like I don't know. Like I'm not a parent, but I feel like, you know, if I were a parent and wanted to be one like really really bad, you know, I'd do whatever it takes to get a kid, even if like I really couldn't have one in any way. So what do you think about that? Like what do you think about like the options that you have?
Well, so this is something that Joey and I talk about pretty frequently because like we're, you know, headed towards marriage or headed towards wanting to enter that phase in our lives. And you're right that the endos don't tell you that. Mine didn't quite tell me I'd be fat and sad, but he definitely also didn't mention that I wouldn't be able to have kids, which, you know, I would have greatly appreciated. I mean, granted, the onus is on everyone to do their own research, but it would be nice if the doctor, you know, that's a pretty big thing you could mention. So, and obviously that's anecdotal between you and I, like our endos didn't tell us, maybe other people's do, but, yeah, you know, for trans people, it's very difficult to have kids if you medically transition. We've thought about like adoption, and I wouldn't mind adoption, but Joey doesn't want to adopt. And then, you know, everything else is highly expensive to the point where it's like you got to be pretty loaded to like do all the crazy science shit to like get me and Joey's DNA in one person, you know?
And like surrogates are so expensive. They're like tens of thousands of dollars.
Yeah. I mean, you're like paying for like, you know, 9 months of someone's life. Like that's like crazy. So it's hard, but you know, you have more motivation to make things happen when you understand that it'll be harder for you and that it's more of an uphill battle. And I think, you know, when we finally do, you know, come to the end of our road and we figure out how we're going to do it, I think it'll be like way more rewarding than if like, I don't know, like we both worked at Walmart or something. He got me pregnant on a Sunday and like, you know what I mean? Like, it's going to be more special.
That would be a dream come true for me, getting
pregnant at Walmart.
Yes.
In the camping section.
Yes, absolutely. In the fishing section, camping section, bring it. You get pregnant.
Right.
Yeah, there definitely is that like big, like it definitely like from what I've seen so far on like the things you really disagreed with a kid transitioning on is probably like how do they know they barely know what sterilization is. How do they know to make that choice with the after effects that or with the effects that hormones have? How does like a kid know that like that's going to happen, and how can they like determine it if they,
Yeah,
uh,
that is the biggest thing for me is like the sterilization, because like obviously I do come more so from the conservative side, and like I am really big on family values, and I personally think family is everything. And so the thought of someone giving up their ability to have a family, at least by conventional means, before they have the ability to really understand what that means and before they've really thought about it, is that's something I just have had a really hard time wrapping my head around, I guess.
right, definitely. And like, as I said before, like I never thought of it in
Hmm.
that sense when I was like 15 transitioning.
Hmm.
I was like, I was familiar with adoption, and I'm like still familiar with it. And like, if I ever wanted a kid, like I kind of knew, like, I kind of had this overall, like, I didn't know really much about sterilization, but I'm like, I kind of want to adopt anyway. But
Hmm.
not everybody wants that. And so, and especially like you and Joey, you kind of go through these things like Joey doesn't want to adopt, and like you try to find these little things, but there's only so much you can do to really get a kid these days. And like they're working on a whole bunch of stuff, but it's like not, it's not fully there, and so there's limited resources. So that's why I don't think 13-year-olds and all that kind of stuff should be making that decision. I would.
Right. But you know what? Like, we're gonna figure it out, girl. Like, when I say we, I mean you and I. Like, I think that you are such a strong person at such a young age, and I think that you are going to have the utmost resilience in life. I can tell. You're spirited, you're fiery, like you were going to figure everything out. And I think that obviously I have my opinions on trans kids, and I'm not hard-headed, but I also don't really necessarily see myself changing them. However, that doesn't change that on an individual basis. I can see you for who you are, London, and I think that you have made the right decision for you. Seriously.
I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry. I'm not gonna cry.
Oh,
Oh my gosh.
it's cool.
Wait. I was actually gonna ask that like later on. I don't know when, but I was just gonna say like, what do you think about like the kids, like, I don't know, like me, Ella, and like Calvin, transitioning, like, I don't know, like, would that like affect you, or like would that like kind of, I don't know, just like what are your like thoughts on people I guess you like know or like personally know, or like
Mhm.
people that you've met like me, like what do you think about um them, like, I guess, transitioning?
Right. So I have like two sides of the coin when it comes to that. Like, I think you're great. I think Ella is great. I think Calvin is great. Calvin also came to Virginia, which was really, really cool. And so when I see the three of you and I see other trans kids that I know that are like you, I think right on. Like, these kids like are great. These kids are gonna get it done. These kids are amazing. But throughout my life, I've also met trans youth who, like, I can see it from a mile away that this probably is not the best thing for them. I remember a few years ago, I met this kid, and we became friends, and he lived in my town when I lived in my hometown, my really small hometown. And we kind of bonded because like I was, feminine at the time and like on my way to transition. And he was, farther behind, like wasn't presenting as female, but he like wanted to, and he was upset that he like wasn't on his way yet. And so come to find out a few years later though, like it was like, and I could tell right then and there that was not for him. I could just tell. And then come to find out a few years later, like he didn't do it. He was like, that would have been the worst mistake. And I've also talked to other people who have made that mistake. And to me, um, I'm not trying to say I have like some weird like tranny dar or something, but like you just know, right? Like, I think you know what I'm saying. You just know when it's like she's one of the girls. Like, she is one of the girls. Like, she's here and she's going to transition. And then when you see someone who's like, they're just kind of like going through it and think they're one of the girls, but they're not.
I absolutely get that, and I think the best word for that is tranny talk.
Yes.
Add that to the dictionary, please. But like, I so get that, and like the detransitioning thing, I think is a problem, and it's like, I think it kind of goes with with detransitioning. It kind of, I feel like, goes beyond kids and kind of goes into culture. And I think a lot of the time, especially with the people, like with many things, I think have to do with like detransitioning. Like I think the endocrinologists and with informed consent and with these stupid groups of trannies that love to advocate the idea that you don't need gender dysphoria to be trans. It's like those people,
Yeah.
it's like they're like, it's not a choice. Like gender dysphoria is like, you know, what other motivation would you have to transition if you didn't, you know, if you didn't have it? And
Yeah,
it's
there is none.
exactly. And there's just like there's these people that like spread that idea and just like kind of it's almost in a way glamorizing it, like in like a in kind of making transition rely on like just aesthetics. It's like they don't put out there that it's debilitating, it's a horrible thing to go through, and that like a lot of trans people, probably even you and I included, that like if it were up to us, we wouldn't have this. If it were up to us, I'm pretty sure we wouldn't like spend like thousands of dollars on like surgeries and like hormones. And it's like
Yeah.
it's so seen as like this glamorous thing, and I could always tell it's a person that like will regret transitioning later if they treat it as like this glamorous hot life that, you know, they'll get some tits and they'll like look like a celebrity and shit like that.
Yeah.
And it's like I
Yeah. I did a video where and part of the research for the video, it was on detransitioners, and part of the research for that video was just like watching all the detransition stories on YouTube, and like a lot of them were just like young gay boys who wanted to be pretty and get attention, and that was just what that was, and they thought it would make them like little like celebrities, and there are people who definitely do it for all the wrong reasons. But you can also spot them a mile away. Like I don't know. Like I like living here in Hollywood, I feel like I've seen like a lot of people where like their gig is just like looking cute and going out and getting attention, and it's not really who they are. It's like a costume, you know? And those people I think are like kind of like doomed to do transition. I'm probably getting off on a little tangent, but there's a lot of like messes out here that you can tell aren't really trans. They're just like throwing on a wig and trying to like mess with straight boys.
oh my gosh, trapped. But like I
Yeah.
I so get that. Like you see everything in Hollywood, probably like
Mm-hmm.
really everything. Um,
Yes.
right. I think yeah, detransitioning is like such a mess. It's such a weird thing because I think it's like it goes beyond like, as I said, it goes beyond kids and stuff like that. And so that's why I think you should treat kids, especially kids that want to transition, with like extra scrutiny, because like it's their body and their life, but you know, it's going to change their body. It's going to change their life. And that's not something to take lightly. I've always like advocated on my channel that like transition isn't something to take lightly. It's not simply
Right.
way more than something like you just like, oh my God, I want some tits. I never describe gender dysphoria as like a want. It's like, I should have these things. I should
It's
have,
a need. Yeah.
yeah, it's like, it's really weird. It's like, it's not subconscious, but it's like I don't want these things, but like I need these things. I should have these things, but I don't. And it's like you could definitely tell who's, you know, I don't want to say a legit trans person, but I'll say it anyway. A legit trans person and like not legit. Like,
Yeah. They're you know, it's not PC and it's not what you're supposed to say, but it's just the truth. It's funny. Like I think it'd be interesting for us to kind of talk about like what dysphoria feels like. Maybe we're getting a little off topic. I don't know. I don't want to like run the stream, but it's like such an interesting topic to me because, you know, I've gone through different stages with it. But what's your experience if you want to talk about it?
yeah, definitely. I'm so open. So like,
Cool.
Dysphorias are real. It's the weirdest thing sometimes because like I don't want to say it's like dysmorphia because those a lot of people conflate dysphoria and dysmorphia, and they're like totally separate things. It's not like delusion. Like when we're trans, we're not like imagining us like a cis woman in the mirror, but like it's not that. It's just like it's a weird feeling because okay, we might get into some tea, not tea,
Cool.
but like I don't know, I'll be open. So like basically like I'd see you on Instagram and like I like you're amazing. I idolize you and you have like such a great body, especially like seeing you like in person and you're like just so small and curvy. And I'd be like, why don't I look like that? Like, why don't I like have those curves, have those everything? And it's like, you know, it's weird. And so you're just kind of like, you know, I should have these things. I should like have, you know, the curves that I like that she has, and I should have the curves that like I want in life. And like I look at all the kinds like beautiful trans people, and it's just like, you know, you compare yourself a lot, and it's just kind of like, at least for me, like I compare myself a lot, and I like really like analyze cis bodies, trans bodies, and be like, you know, why don't I have this? Why don't, you know, stuff like that.
Right. Okay. Well, I will tell you right now, this is something that I had to learn. And I don't want to seem like I'm just like giving you advice. Like I'm just so smart because I go through it, trust me. But something I've learned to do is to like, you have to stop comparing yourself to other people because that's something I did for so long. And I still fall, you know, into that as well. Like sometimes I still catch myself like comparing myself to this person, that person. But it is the most unhealthy mindset, trans or not. And it leads to, I'm sure you know, but I get depressed about it, whatever. It happens a lot less lately because I know not to do it. But I think you have to focus on being like the best version of you because you'll never be even like a mediocre version of someone else. You know what I mean? Like it's about seeing what you have and saying, okay, let me take this to the next level and be the best me, you know?
Right. Definitely. Oh my God. That's like my tranny mama.
It's so true though, like especially when you're like in the midst of transitioning. Like I remember before I had like any of my surgeries, before I was like as far along as I was in my hormones, like I would look at other girls and be like, damn, like it's like not even cool, like either how far behind I am or whatever. Like they have this, I don't have that, but it's so unhealthy. And the other thing about it is like you have all the time in the world because I'm sure when you compare yourself to certain trans girls, like if you remember, oh, they tried transitioning like years ago and they're like 25 with the ability to pay for all these surgeries and the ability to get all this done. So if you're going to compare your body, also compare your age and how long you've been transitioning because I guarantee you they've all been like started a long time ago, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And that's like, I guess that's kind of like how, like, to answer your question, I guess, like, how I kind of like experience my dysphoria in a way. And like, one of the aspects is just me comparing myself to like all these other like gorgeous girls. Like, I see people like Steph Signati and like even Gigi Gorgeous and you and like all these people. And I'm like, they transitioned so well. They like, and like, I'll just notice like little things and I'm just like, you know, I don't have this. And like, you know, why? But then, like, as you said, like, it's with age and I've only been on hormones for like 2.5 years. And it's just like, that's kind of like, for some reason, what I do. Like, I kind of just compare myself and
Yeah.
kind of sucks, but I think I will grow out of it soon. I think it's like also just a teenager thing. I think every teenager, cis, trans, just has compared themselves.
Yeah. I think when you're a teen and you're also trans, it's probably like compounded because I think sometimes like in the trans community, like it's almost like there's so few of us and we all kind of know who each other are, you know? And it's like it's almost like subconsciously like seen as like a race. And it really is not, you know?
Right. Yeah, definitely. I so agree with that. So like could I ask you, like, say, like, how do you experience yours?
Yeah. So I've gone through different stages in my life experiencing dysphoria. It used to be, I still have it, but it used to be just so terrible. It used to be um, like I wouldn't even leave the house over it. And we're talking uh, about a year ago, not a year ago, like a year, yeah, actually like a year ago, year and a half ago, it was at its worst. So I was still on YouTube at that time, but you know, I was experiencing it so badly. I basically just lived in my apartment. I was just like shitting out YouTube videos, like doing nothing else with my life. I had no friends. I didn't go out. Even if it came to like a simple grocery shopping trip, like I would send my ex-boyfriend who I was with at the time to go do all of that. Like I couldn't do any of it because I felt so insecure about my face and my body and whatever have you. And it was an interesting time as well because I was starting up YouTube at that time. And so you're inundated with a bunch of comments of people being like, you're so pretty, you're so gorgeous. I would have never thought you were trans, blah, blah, blah. But like none of that matters if you yourself are insecure. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah.
a million nice comments don't mean shit if you yourself feel like you aren't shit. And I felt like I wasn't shit, you know?
I like, wow, this is scary. Like I so relate. Like you could tell, like, you can get all the, oh my God, you're gorgeous, you're beautiful. You can get like all those comments, but like at the end of the day, like that first, like it just won't change. And like,
Yeah.
not saying it doesn't like have like, it doesn't matter because like obviously when someone calls me beautiful, I'm like, oh, thank you and stuff like that. But it's just like,
Yeah.
you know, being dysphoric and being extremely self-conscious and being depressed, it just like, it topples everything. And just like, you know, and hearing your story, like you couldn't even go out and you couldn't even like do the things that you and everybody else should be able to do because this thing is holding you back. It just, it sucks so bad.
Yeah, it was bad. And like I wasn't sure when I was ever gonna be able to get the surgeries that I wanted, and then I needed. And it kind of just came as a surprise that YouTube took off and I was able to afford them. And so I got them as soon as I could. And then since then, so that was like the first phase of my dysphoria. Well, obviously, when I was younger, it was bad, and it got worse and worse and worse as I got older. And so that was like the peak of it. Was like a year and a half ago. I was just miserable because I was like, what am I? I'm like 23 years old. I don't have the things done I want to have done. Like, what am I doing? Then I got them done, and now it's like a new phase. And my phase now is like I'm much more confident. My dysphoria is at an all-time low. It still comes and goes. Like you can ask Joey. Sometimes like I'm just upset, and that's like, and that happens. But it's rare these days. And so that to me just kind of proves like yeah, like transition is faulty, but transition, you know, it's kind of the best we can do right now when you're trans. Like it's the best option so far because it has like severely limited the amount of dysphoria I feel. So I kind of feel like I'm living life for the first time right now. I feel like kind of like a newborn. Like I'm kind of like I'm able to do so many different things, like
Right.
simple things like being able to like not feel scared to have someone take your picture, like shit like that. Like
Right.
just be able to go out in the sunlight and not worry about like, oh, like this angle or like this shadow or whatever. Like
Oh my God.
clothes that you would otherwise felt like super insecure in. Like it helps a lot.
Yeah, definitely. I'm like, I so get that. Recently, like I just have you heard of like the Kim Kardashian waist tightener things?
Like the waist trainers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I have one of those and like for a while and like I still use it now, but like I think at least like 2 weeks ago or something, or like a week ago actually, like I pretty much like my dysphoria is so bad, like I would constantly wear it and it's like not safe to like wear it as long as I did. And on top of that, wearing like 2 push-up bras and like trying to get, you know, my titties up to my neck basically.
Mm-hmm.
It made me sick. Like I like almost threw up like while watching a movie when I had like all those things on. And it's like that's why that's why I like hate when people say like, oh my gosh, you don't need dysphoria to be trans. It's like I'm not like about to throw up because like,
Right.
you know, it's a choice. It's just like so it's like it's really debilitating. It's like
Yeah.
a horrible thing. Like you pretty much a lot of people mutilate their bodies over just having simple proportional female parts. And it's just like
Yeah.
horrible.
Absolutely. I know like where you're at right now, London. Like I relate so hard and um I don't know. I really do see like such a bright future for you. Like not even just transition, just everything. But like just speaking specifically about transition, like the fact that you know who you are at such a young age, like that you're miles and miles ahead of where I was at your age. Like you're gonna be so good. And once you do finish the things that you need to do for your transition, girl, like you're gonna look back at like the times when you were like stuffing yourself into this or like trying to like get what little bit of like cleavage you could make. You're gonna look back at that and be like, holy shit, like it's just a different perspective and you'll really appreciate having gone through it though too.
Right. Oh my gosh. Wow. Thank you for that, first of all. Holy shit.
Of course.
Um, damn. Yeah, that's like it's so true. And I think like especially for you, like that means a lot because like everybody, like all your fans, everybody, all your supporters, just everyone in general can just see that you're like happier than ever. Like in all your photos and everything, like you're just working the angles, you're just like being as cute as ever. And like it's so obvious. And it's not like it's not something that you just kind of like can see if you just meet the person, like just through photos, just through like looking at you through the years. Like you don't have to worry about angles, you don't have to worry about lighting. You just like you're just you. And like it's so
Yeah.
cool to see. And so like I just can't wait for that to happen to me.
You're gonna get there. Let me tell you, I remember I've never talked about this. This is kind of dark, but like I remember like a year and a half ago when I was doing my YouTube videos, like it was at for people who really watch me, you'll know that right now I'm living in LA with Joey, and then before that I was living in an apartment, and then before that I was living in a different one. So I've lived 3 places since I've started YouTube. And the one I was living in like before my last place, I remember that's where I was doing like YouTube videos like constantly, like, uploading a lot, which is like technically good, but it's because I had no other life and no other thing to do with myself. And I remember so many times I would be like crying before I film because I just couldn't get any kind of angle that made me look any kind of decent. I couldn't get any kind of lighting that made me feel like I looked halfway okay. Like I felt like I looked horrible, and it was just this debilitating like hatred of the way that I looked and how I was presenting. And so like yeah, like a lot of people will see those videos and look back and be like, oh my god, it's such a funny video. But guess what? Between every single take of me making fun of someone or me making a joke or me talking about a current event or whatever, I was like on the verge of like breaking down because I couldn't get things to work properly. It would take me like an hour to film like a 3-minute video because of how insecure I was with how I looked. So like it was a very dark period in my life for sure. Like so I understand what dysphoria feels like, and I know you'll get through it though. I know you will. You're on the fast track.
Wow, that was a lot. Oh my gosh.
Sorry, I'm just going all honey.
No, oh my gosh, it's like so great. I bet like I love that. I don't know. I'm open about my life because like a lot of people could probably relate. And so like I'm glad you are too. And gosh, I so feel that. And it's like weird how humans are just like built to like, you know, like I notice little things on me and it's just like it's only me that's going to notice that because I know my body better than anyone. It's like same with you. Like you probably notice these like little things that like nobody else would ever see. Like literally, okay, not exposing Ella, but like literally the other day she was like talking about our TNN video that we did together, and she's just like look at my hands. Like every time like you could see how many takes I do because my hands get like faster and fidgetier. And it's like only you would notice these things like because it's you. And it's like crazy how like, you know, your mind only picks up on things that like, you know,
Yes.
because it's you and like nobody else discovers that. And it's just really it's really sad, especially like when, you know, the things you've been through and stuff like that. And so I commend you so much. And I don't know, I so feel. And like there's been videos that like I just like I literally can't post it, like the whole thing. Like it'd be like 10 minutes long and I can't post it because of like one shot or because like I angled something different. And it's just like if I didn't do that, I could like post it. But it's just like it's so weird how it like kind of takes control of you, you know?
Yeah, yeah. And I don't know. I feel like some people see like transitioning as like a vanity thing or like a, you know, a purely aesthetic thing as far as getting surgeries or whatever. But like, so I'm at like a place right now in my career where I'm really happy. I'm like working on a lot of really cool things and I have like things to announce soon and I'm really excited. And I'm excited mostly because this would have never happened for me like a year ago because I turned down so many things because of how insecure I was about the way that I looked. Like if I would have transitioned before I started YouTube, like I would be so much farther ahead in my career than I am right now because I spent the first year and a half like saying no to everything almost. Like um if it was if it was like a TV show where I'd have to be seen from the side, like no, I'm not doing that because I don't want to be seen from the side. If it was like I remember I got offered to do a documentary on MTV that was literally going to be just about me, not me and other people, just about me. And I said, no thank you, because I don't need a professional camera crew following me around filming me in HD when I hate the way I fucking look. So, you know, so what I'm trying to say is like surgeries and transition affects like every area of your life. It's not just like a vanity thing. It's like it's feeling okay with being you thing, you know?
Yeah, exactly. And it's about like, it's, if it were vanity, you know, we would go above and beyond. But, you know, with us, we just simply want to gain the proportions. Like, you're not over there, you know, getting like double D's and like getting hip fillers and getting all these things. Like, you're
Yeah.
not over exaggerating anything. I think vanity is more having to do with just like, you know, getting, you have the proportions to an extent, but you want to like, you know, gain a little bit more. And
Yeah.
you could see that with both like women getting implants and like bodybuilders taking steroids. You could see that like almost like anywhere. But with trans people, it's just like, you see trans people sometimes like go above and beyond, but most of the time for most trans people it's just like they want to obtain the proportions. A lot of trans people don't like, I was debating someone once and they called me a transgender because I looked glamorous or something, or I wanted to look glamorous, and it's like there's a lot of trans people who just want to look normal
Yeah.
and just like want to look like just every other day, every like random person you see on the street, and it's just like it's definitely not vanity. And it's sad that a lot of like doctors and a lot of people don't see it as a mental disorder that, you know, you have to do something with.
Absolutely. When I think back about like sort of the trajectory of like my self-image and how I view myself over the course of like doing YouTube, and I say doing YouTube because like doing YouTube has affected my self-image to a huge extent. Like when you start recording videos and like looking at yourself and editing yourself and watching yourself, like it changes how you view yourself. And when you're put out there doing videos to the internet and you're getting feedback on how you look and stuff, you start becoming more aware of how you look to an extent that you wouldn't if you weren't online, you know?
Absolutely. Like, especially, I hope I don't make, well, you don't, you know, you got facial femme, but like I just noticed on like the Shane Dawson like little snippet, people were just like, why does
Yes.
she look different? Why does, you know, and I'm just like, I think she looks the same, but like, you know, like some people were just kind of like, why she looks a little different, you know, and stuff like that. And like, I don't know. I could imagine like you felt really shit after
Yeah,
that. If you've seen this.
I did. I did. So I did that interview and like that was one of the few things because like I said, I was turning down so many opportunities at that time because of how I felt about myself. And so, but at the time I said yes to that because I was like, okay, like, this is Shane, and like Shane's really awesome, and Shane, you know, wants to do this with me. And I said yes because of who it was. But yeah, after that, of course, I was like, that, you know, kicked me in gear as far as working hard for my surgeries, even more so because I was like, that's just not how I want the world to view me. That's not who I am. And luckily, thank God it's not now, but like it was at that time. And like I was kind of really miserable. That was like what it was if I hadn't been, you know, in my room filming a video with the light on me and like filtering everything and angling everything. Like that's what it would have been. So, you know, we all have our different ways of handling it, but YouTube for sure affects like how you view yourself. Like there's like the vanity aspect and then there's like the dysphoria aspect. So the dysphoria aspect was always like my brow bone, my nose, the fact that I had no boobs, the fact that I was like not curvy, like all of that. That's dysphoria, right? That's like female attributes that you don't have that you want. So that's just being trans. And then there's of course vanity. Like, you know, I've definitely, since I'm in the entertainment industry and like how I look matters so much, I of course like I spend a lot on upkeep and like I'm spray tanning constantly and perfecting my makeup and all that kind of stuff because it matters. But that's not being trans. You know, it's not the same thing as vanity, you know?
Yeah, definitely. I would agree. Oh my gosh. I mean, you're just like, you're a public figure. You have to present yourself in a certain way and you have to like, you know, before like if, oh my God, hopefully nobody sees my like first videos ever again. That was tragedy. But like I literally just like I Riley Dennis my shit and just smudge some eyeliner on and just hit the camera. Like it was just that. And like now that I look at it and now like started wearing makeup and like presenting myself, and now like I'm like, you know, curling my hair and stuff like that. So I think as you just go in more in the public eye, there are like vanity things, and then there's just
Yeah.
like the dysphoria things, and you know it's dysphoria because like, you know, you kind of try to do the same things on camera as you do off camera, like, or at least for me, like I still try to look as curvy as I can, as like busted as I can off camera, just as I am on.
Yes.
So that's definitely a thing.
But then the vanity stuff, you don't really care so much if that's like present off camera, you
Right,
know?
exactly.
Like like I leave the house every day with like my hair up and absolutely no makeup and like I'm in a tank top and like leggings, you know what I mean? But I
Right,
don't present that way on camera. Like on camera, it's like full face of makeup, my hair's curled, I have a bustier on, like all of that stuff.
right,
But one thing I needed to have, you know, fixed 24/7 was like the surgeries I got. So it's different.
right. And you're looking better than ever.
Thank you.
Oh my gosh. Oh my God. I guess I'll go back to children transitioning.
Okay, we went off on such a tangent.
Such a tangent, but I am so glad we like covered that. Like that was everything. Um, I would say like, and it kind of does play into a lot what we were saying, because I've heard you talk about passing before, and like, what is your thoughts on passing?
So that's another thing that like I've gone through phases as far as my view on. It's interesting. Like you say something on YouTube once and like it becomes like static and it becomes like the only thing people think you will ever feel on the topic. So I don't know. I forget sometimes what I say in videos. I may have been harsher on this in the past, but um, like I'm fully aware that like quote unquote passing is like partly within your capacity to work towards and partly not. Like there are things like genetics and like how naturally tall you are and like so your natural bone structure that you can't change. And so I don't know. I've learned to completely stop caring about that. I'm like at a point in my life where like I'm very comfortable with the way that I look. Like I have not ever been like clocked in real life. I know that happens to some people. I mean, I was when I was a few times when I was younger and hadn't transitioned. But it doesn't happen now. And so that tells me I don't need to stress about it. Like I'm just comfortable, you know? Um, but obviously it's something that's very important to trans people. And I don't think anyone should be given shit about it if they can't, because sometimes you just can't. Like there are girls who do like anything and everything they can to pass and they just don't. Um, and then there are some girls who don't have to do hardly anything and they just do.
Yeah.
So it's, you know, case by case.
Yeah, definitely. I think, I don't know. I feel like passing a lot of the time, you know, it's a very strange thing. I do disagree with passing a lot of the time, but at the end of the day, like in, I guess, the real world, we could say it's just very important. You know, I live in like, I'm close to Baltimore, and there was a trans girl, I think there's many actually trans girls that died in Baltimore because they looked like actual like men and got beaten up. And it's like really sad.
Yeah,
And,
it
like,
is.
it's, I feel like I don't know. I don't want to like put words in your mouth, and you could like definitely correct me. But like, you know, we're I guess very lucky to have like, you know, the things that we have, and like I'm guessing you pretty much like passed. You know, like especially like before facial femme, before all that kind of stuff. Maybe like while you were on hormones, you know. Um, I'm guessing you passed. If any, I remember I think you said once that like somebody that will misgender you would pretty much it would be intentional. But not much accidental, but you can definitely like.
Yeah. So um I remember even before I started transitioning when I was like 19 and thinking about it, I would go to the grocery store and like everyone would call me she. I would go anywhere and like that would be what people call me. So like there were certain things I was lucky with enough. And like my energy is definitely like a feminine energy and like I exude that. And like I've always had like always been short. I've always had like long hair, all that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I guess I just kind of got to a point like after my surgeries where I just like a point of like I'm very content now and it's not something I worry about. Like I don't walk down the street and like I don't think like, oh, does that person know? Does that person know? Because as far as I'm concerned, even if every person knew, I wouldn't care because I love me finally. Like I am cool with me, you know? Um, but I relate to like not wanting to go places because you were worried about how you look to certain people. Like I said, wasn't even leaving the house a year and a half ago. So um
Right.
I guess the point there is like surgery is just like a game changer and like it is important for trans people because granted, I've never been, you know, clocky like that where people would like say something to me or people would call me sir, anything like that, which I know happens to some girls. Um, but for myself, I never was comfortable until after surgery.
Definitely. And so you basically like just you passed pretty much in general.
Yeah.
Um, I would see my I guess my thing is just like as I said, like we were both pretty much very, very lucky to like, not have like not be balding, not be like, set like 6 feet tall, not,
Mhm.
not look like a Hulk Hogan.
Yeah.
And it's like I think a lot of people do kind of underestimate and kind of like I think passing is sadly important. I don't want it to be a thing, but I think it is. And I think, you transitioned at a very like at an age where a lot of people do develop like highly very like prominent secondary sex characteristics of a male.
Mhm.
And I think the reason I think transitioning young is best in some ways is sadly because of passing and because like, you can clock it at like before you grow in height, before you gain muscle, before you know get some things that are a lot of the time and some of the time you can't reverse like while on hormones. Like you can't change your height on hormones. There's some muscle density that you can't really ever go. So that's why I really I guess I'm like a little bit more for children, or I don't want to say children because I do want to differentiate children and kids and like young adults. I'm
Mhm.
I'm for young adults transitioning, but only because I want there to be like kind of like an in between, because when you get older you can express yourself better. And I think kids are yeah, I think kids are best to transition when they can one fully express themselves, and
Mhm.
to when they go through at least a little bit of their biological set puberty, because like how do you know that you're gonna like hate your biological set puberty if you've never been through it? So that's why I don't
Right.
agree with people like Jazz Jennings that like transition and went on like blockers when like she was very, very young. I think you should experience your, and I think it's just overall better to experience your biological set puberty when you're at least.
Right.
And that's why I guess I'm for 15-year-olds and 16-year-olds, like that being the starting age, because at that point you do go through a little bit of your puberty, and everyone experiences puberty at a different age, but generally like 16 and 15 is like the time that you like really get into it and you really feel like, well, this is what it's like to have hair, this is what it's like to have like male growth, female growth, all that stuff. And at that time you generally know, well, I don't want this, but I'm experiencing it.
Yeah. I totally get like that is like such a big benefit of transitioning young is like, you know, the possibility aspect and like you get less male secondary sex characteristics because of it. My thing has always been I just have a hard time weighing that with like the ability to have kids, like I totally get it. Like I feel like sometimes people like act like I don't get it. Like they act like I don't know that that's like a thing, but I totally understand. It's just it's like a hard time weighing it. You know what I mean? It's hard because there's no perfect answer. There's no line for everyone. There's no one size fits all. It's like everyone has their own distinct size, if that makes sense. It's so difficult.
Yeah, it's very difficult to gauge. It's like a very, as you said, like case by case thing. And it's like everyone's like different. And so that's why I think definitely kids should be treated like with more scrutiny and more like you should question kids a lot more. Like I think 16-year-olds should be questioned a lot more than an 18-year-old transitioning, because like naturally they're younger. And as you really don't have your life together at 16. At 18 you have maybe a little bit more together, but it's definitely a case by case thing. I know like Ella, for example, like she knew like at a very, very young age what she was getting into. She did like all the research, like she was on it as a kid. And like, that's a very rare case where kids like, you know, just will know and will do
Mhm.
all the research. Like kids, a lot of kids aren't willing, like me, I didn't look up sterilization. I didn't look up, you know, like what, you know, my future would be like with having kids. And, you know, there's some people like Ella that can just like do that, but then there's a lot that can't. And so that's why I think it's like best to, you know, treat kids with scrutiny and, you know, definitely make it, definitely question them a lot more, you know?
Yeah, for sure. I think I'm just like wondering when there will be more of a concrete answer for everything, right? Like everything is so arbitrary at this point, and there's like it's one of those topics where no one, both sides will never be happy because it's like so black and white. It's like either you let kids transition or you don't. You know what I mean? And so I don't
Right.
know. It's one of those topics that I think science will give us the resolution eventually. In
Right.
fact, I know it's one of those topics that science will give us the resolution. I guess just right now we're in this very awkward like waiting period of like figuring all this out. And but that is why conversations like this are important, you know?
Yeah, 100%. And like, you know, I'm, I guess, a part of like a new wave of like a new generation of like trans people. And like, you know,
Yeah.
it's really interesting. So I guess we'll see and wait what happens. If I get really fucked up in the future, oops.
Yes. You are absolutely the next little wave, honey. And you know, I don't know. I see bright things for you and Ella and you know, all of you guys.
So sweet. Oh my gosh. Yeah. I 100% get, I 100% at least get where you're coming from. And like, I'm glad that you can like, you know, I've seen like you debate like some of these people before and it's like, well, oh my God, especially when ContraPoint said, why not a 13-year-old? I'm like, it's like the only like experience you've had with like people that like argued for like kids transitioning. It's just, they were such piss poor arguments. It was like really, really
Yeah, it's always black and white to them. It's always, like you said, they either transition or kill themselves. Like it's always that black and white. It's like, girl, calm down.
literally, and it's like it's kind of scary. Like
I
I
know.
oh my gosh, I can't imagine. It's just it's definitely it's definitely interesting and it's definitely not black and white like, you know,
Yeah.
a lot of those people would think, you know.
Yeah.
Sorry, I have like a whole list. So like I'm just like trying to like see
You're good. I will say though, I didn't mention it to you beforehand. I kind of had to be out of here at like 3:15, which is like 15 minutes from now.
okay, yeah, definitely. Oh my gosh. Um I think I actually like completed like all my questions.
Oh, okay. Cool.
Is there anything you wanted to state on the live stream or just anything at all?
Um, just that like I fully endorse you and your channel. I fully endorse Ella and her channel and Calvin and um like I really appreciate the fact that like there are other voices on YouTube that are sort of, you know, more on my ideological side of things, but are also trans because I think that trans representation on the other side of the aisle politically is very, very important. I think that there needs to be more voices like ours. I think that we are sort of a rare breed in that sense. And the more of us, the better. This is another thing I was talking to Caitlin about because I was like, we get it so hard from both sides. It's like from the conservative side, like there are some people who are like, will just always hate us because we're trans, and it's always like you degenerate piece of shit, like blah blah blah. And then from the left, it's always, you know, you're sympathizing with people who are calling you a degenerate man piece of shit, you know?
Can't
Um,
make anyone happy.
I know, but you know what? It's really important that we're here because I think that, like I said, representation for us on this side is something that needs to happen and it's absolutely the future. And I'm just glad that I'm not the only one anymore because for a long time I kind of was. So I'm
Old
glad.
same tranny, y'all. Yeah, definitely. I 100% agree. And like, I'm kind of glad that we could like, I don't know, that I could like hear you and like, you know, there were some gray areas that never was like touched with um
Mhm.
kids transitioning and your thoughts on it. And I'm like so glad that I could like hear it and you could talk to like someone who actually like understands you a lot and isn't like totally crazy. It's either hormones or you die.
Yeah,
Like,
exactly. I think this was a great conversation. We got into like some deep stuff. Like it was great.
oh my gosh. It was
I,
amazing though. Like,
for sure.
I love it. Oh my gosh. Well, thank you, Blaire, for like coming on. Like everybody has always wanted me to do like a collab with you and like, you know, do a talk with you. And now it's finally here. Y'all's wishes to come true.
For sure. I love it.
Thank you so much. Okay, everyone, have a great night.
Bye, everyone.
Bye. Oh my gosh.